Hey there, my friend, and welcome back to another interview episode on the More Than Social podcast. Today, I am happy to introduce you to Jess from Jess Creatives. She is a website designer, she has done graphic design, she used to be a photographer, and she really focuses on SEO. So, if you don't know what SEO is, in my opinion, it's really the foundational aspects that are going to organically get your websites or anything that you do to the top of Google. So, it's definitely something that you want to learn. Funny story, when I first got into the industry, we talked a lot about SEO and I was taught a lot about SEO, and that was about 10 years ago now, and things have changed. So I did mention to Jess during this episode one of these hacks that I was taught back in the day, and man, has things ever changed. And that is definitely something that I no longer do and or don't recommend doing. But I wanted to bring Jess on today to teach you about SEO. And she also gave a lot of additional tips in terms of how she actually manages her business as a solopreneur and how she's able to grow and how she's able to scale her business without hiring a team, which is something that I know some of you are very interested in, or maybe you currently are a solopreneur and you are looking to grow and you don't really know how to manage it all. We talk a lot about that as well. She also gave some really good tips in terms of how do you actually set up your website homepage, and she gave a lot of tips obviously with SEO aspects. So I know you are going to get a lot out of this episode besides just SEO tips. So I cannot wait to dive in. Let's get right to it. Hey, Jess, welcome to the More Than Social podcast.
Yes, thank you so much for having me.
Of course, I am so excited to dive into all things SEO because honestly, when I first started in the online world, I was learning all these SEO hacks and I'm going like almost 10 years ago now. And like things have changed so much. So I'm like, I need to pick your brain and learn everything because I'm definitely not doing anything right. So I'm excited to pick your brain from that side of things. But I
Okay,
also
great.
I also want to talk like just like entrepreneurship in general.
Yeah.
So before we dive into the content side of things, why don't you give our listeners a quick insight into who you are, what you do, how you even started your own business in the first place?
Yeah, so like you said, my name's Jess. My business is Jess Creatives. And I started actually in college. We had to like brand ourselves our senior year. And I, at the time, didn't want to like use my maiden name. I knew I would, or like, was pretty sure, I should say, like I would be getting married to my then boyfriend, now husband. And so I was like, but I don't wanna, like, assume and, like, use his name. So, I also at the time was doing design and photography. So, I used to do, like, wedding photography and portraits. And so I was like, "Well, I need something that combines both." So, that's where Jess Creatives came from, and that was in 2011, and then I just kind of did design on the side, and I always thought maybe when I'm like 45, I will be able to work for myself full time. I don't know why 45 was the threshold, but it was. And that quickly changed because I took my business full time in 2014. So I was only 24 years old. And so this year will be 10 years I've been working for myself full time. And it's been really, I think as most entrepreneurs would say, like really good, but also roller coaster at times.
Mhm.
But it's just me. I have a few like VAs, but I don't have any other designers on my team or anything. And so I used to do a lot of graphic design and then I moved into web design. And so I do a lot of web design and SEO. And most of my work is building websites, either like completely overhauling a website, or if someone doesn't have one and they're like, I need a website. Like, I just don't have one. But I also do like VIP days where people just need me to come do a sales page or, they need new brand photos uploaded and that kind of thing. And then SEO, I do a lot of hands on SEO. So, like, I've done some brick and mortar shops where I come in and optimize all their products, or I will come just somebody like me who runs their own business from home and I just come in and optimize all their pages to help them start showing up in Google. So yeah, that's my day to day is really just kind of at my desk every day in the back end designing or tweaking keyword research, like I'm always nerding out about something. So,
Love it. I love it. And you know
yeah.
what? I started my business when I was 23, so we have that in common. It's
Oh,
yeah,
look.
it's cool to start so young. I mean, pros and cons for sure. Like I would
Yeah.
always get when I was starting, it's like, "Oh, you're so young." It's like, "Well, yeah, I am, but I've been in it for this long." It's like when people
Mhm.
say I'm 9 years in August, and it's like even to me, it's like I can't believe it's been 9 years. Like, I'm still, like,
Me either.
baffled with it. It's like, so congrats on that. That's awesome. 1, congrats for
Yeah.
starting so young, but 2, you're still here. And I don't know about
Yeah.
you, but, like, when I started, I was like, "I don't know if this is gonna be a thing, like, in 10 years from now. I don't know. I like, let's just see where it goes." And yeah, here we are.
Yeah, it's weird. Like I struggle with when people ask what like my 5-year plan is. I'm like, I don't know. Like I will be here. I know that much, but I I'm not a big dreamer. Like I'm not a big visionary person. And so I'm very much like I barely know what I'm going to do this year. Like because I'm also the type of like I just enjoy what I'm doing so much. So, yes, I will try new offers. I've tried a membership before. I've had different podcasts before. So like I try things, but if it's not working for me, if I'm not enjoying it, I'm like, okay,
Done.
next. Like close this down, move on to something else. So I'm not afraid to try things, but yeah, I don't have like some big lofty plan each year in January that like, okay, this is the stuff I'm going to do. And I mean, so far it's worked out. So
I mean, a decade in, it's working for you,
yeah,
so it's
it's
awesome.
working. It's working. My business keeps growing, so I guess it's working so far.
Amazing. And now, so as you've grown over the last decade and you have the VAs you were saying, but you're a solopreneur at this point, how do you manage that with that business growth?
So I use a lot of automations and I pay for a lot of software. I feel like I was one of the first, I mean, not like literally first, but like in my circle first to pay for social media software that I don't know if you've heard of like Meet Edgar. Now I'm on Social B. Basically, it's if the listeners don't know, it's the software where you can have like a library of posts and it just keeps cycling them over and over and over again. And I use that for like Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn because these weren't my primary marketing channels, but I wanted to have some kind of presence there. And I couldn't afford a social media manager, but I was like, I these aren't my main marketing channels. This is not where my people hang out, but I don't want to just like abandon them completely. And
Mhm.
so I kind of use those tools. So I use a lot of tools. Part of it is just my personality. I am a very efficient person. Two of my closest friends, we have like a group chat on Voxer. We talk every day and they have this joke that they started, not me, where they're like, I'm just gonna Jess Creatives this. Like, which means they're just gonna like sit down, knock it out, and like make this happen. They also joke like if I come up with a new idea for a freebie, an offer, a workshop, whatever, I will tell them about it on Voxer, and by the time they respond, they're like, "Oh yeah, like this sounds great. I think you could do X, Y, and Z." And then they're like, "So is your sales page already up? Like,
You're like, "Yep."
is it already up?" And I'm like, "Well, actually, yes, it might be." So that is part of it. I'm just like I mentioned earlier, I'm not afraid to try things. So even though I'm very type A, I'm an Enneagram 1. So even though that I do have some perfectionist tendencies, for some reason it doesn't always show up in my work. And so I'm not afraid to just put up a sales page and be like, there you go. Like, I'm not gonna agonize over it for 2 weeks and, like, tweaking and perfecting the copy. I'm like, "Here's the sales page. There you go." And so, I think that's one thing that's really helped my business is not holding myself back, trying to agonize over the perfect wording, the perfect design, the perfect pictures. Like, I'm just like, "I'm gonna try this. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. I will learn something from it and move on and try better next time for the next workshop, the next freebie, like whatever it is."
Mhm.
So that's part of it. And I also have a very streamlined client process. So I know from talking to other web designers that sometimes that's the biggest struggle with web designers is trying to get all the client content, photos, all that kind of information. I don't really struggle with that. And I think it's just because of all of my streamlined process and the automations and like the workflow that I have set up. So it's pretty hands off on my end. Like the only thing that I have my VA do is add my client to Slack. and that's the only and, like, the rest is just automated. So, that's a few different things that help me with my time is just honestly, if I could narrow it down, it's probably the software and automations and just really streamlining my process
Mhm.
and not getting into the weeds with, like, fluffy things and, "Oh, I need to do this and that." Like, it's all just very straightforward, like, "This is what I need from you," and that's it.
Amazing. Can we talk about that? The
Yeah.
process that you go through with your onboarding your clients? I think a lot of agency owners, whether it's website design or not, if you have such a really good process, what does that really look like from a client-facing perspective?
Yeah, so once you inquire and we talk and you're like, "Okay, yes, I wanna hire you." I use Honeybook for my CRM, so everything goes through there. So they get the proposal with the contract, the invoice, the payments are all automated, like, so I don't have to go back in and send because a lot of my client almost all my clients do payment plans.
Mhm.
So that's all automated, and then I have a whole workflow in Honeybook where they get several emails and questionnaires and whatnot. The first email is they get an outline of the process, which this is probably the 3rd time they've heard the outline of what it is like working with me. This email is a little bit more detailed because I'm like, "You're gonna get your questionnaire, you're gonna get some other, like, educational emails from me, and then you also are gonna get a link to, like, schedule your call." So like, we've talked about that they'll have a call with me and such, but, like, they get the order of, like, when things are gonna happen.
Cool.
They also then get an email about how to share content with me. So I literally have like the instructions copied and pasted from Google Drive and Dropbox to like, this is how you're going to send information. And to some people, that might sound a little crazy because you're like, I mean, it's Dropbox and Google.
Mhm.
I literally have had a client this year who was like, I don't know what those are.
Yeah.
Like, and so
Just cover
I
your
just
bases at that point.
yeah. And I outline, like, you can set up your folders a few different ways. I don't really care, like, whatever makes sense to you, I can figure it out. But that just saves them from having to email me or reach out to me and be like, "When do I send you content? How do I send you content? What do you need from me?" Like, I'm just answering all the questions there. Because then in that email also, there's, like, a huge bulleted list that's like, "Here's all the things I need from you," like, homepage copy, testimonials, pictures, login, like and I think the last bullet point is, like, literally anything you want on the website needs to be in this folder. And then, like I said, they have a questionnaire that they fill out, gives me a lot of information about their business, their brand, that kind of stuff. Then they get a call or a link to schedule a call with me, which is done. I don't use Calendly anymore, but it's something similar to that. And then I have several emails that are purely educational. It's just this is something that you need to think about for your website. So I think I talk about testimonials. I talk about you need legal policies for your website. Think about what you want people to do on your website. So there's a lot of education integrated into the onboarding process just to help them as they're writing their copy and kind of thinking about what they want this to look like and do and all that kind of stuff. And then we have our call. They get basically a Google Doc outline of this is everything that's going to be on the website. These are the pages. This is what you need to put on the pages, all of that stuff. They get a 1 week reminder before the start date and the day before reminder. And the day before also has some like like once you put the copy in Google Drive, like after tomorrow, do not go touch the copy because you don't know if I've already put this on the website or not. So like just leave it alone. So it has some
Okay.
other reminders in there. And then once I start designing, then I send them a few pages to look at and I use Google Forms to get feedback. So several years ago, it used to be I would like send a few pages and be like, "Okay, Lisa, like here's your homepage, about page, and your one sales page. Like, just let me know what you think. Just give me feedback."
Mhm.
And it was just like an open ended question, and it was chaotic. they would like put homepage feedback at the start and then go through the other pages and then say something again about the homepage. And it was, and so having just a form for them to fill out and like really compartmentalize that feedback is really helpful. And so we do that 3 times and then we launch the website. It doesn't sound overly complicated. And I think that's part of why it works,
Mhm.
because it's not really anything fancy.
I mean, not fancy to you, but some people are probably thinking like, "Wow, she's got everything, all her T's
Mhm.
crossed, all her I's dotted." Out of curiosity, with the websites,
Yeah.
you mentioned that you give them a document that breaks down, like, what the pages are gonna look like.
Mhm.
Do you only ever follow one specific, I'm gonna say, overall design of a website? Like, this is I only ever include 5 pages, or do you customize things as well?
So my package, people get up to 8 pages,
Mhm,
and so it really depends on the client and, like, what they need. Like, I have some people who have a podcast, some people don't. I have some people who have a group program and a membership and a shop, so that really is customized to what they want. The only, like, real, I guess, like, kind of template that I loosely follow with each client is really around their homepage.
mm,
And I follow the same structure there as, okay, we need a clear headline at the very beginning because people have like zero point 0.5 seconds to decide if they're in the right spot or not. And then I usually push people, you really want to have like 3 main calls to action on the homepage. It's like choose which door you want to open.
mm,
And some people are like, well, but I have more than 3 offers. And I'm like, doesn't matter. Like, you can have those other offers linked in your navigation, in your footer, like whatever, but you have to decide on like what you want people to do the most,
mhm,
you know? And I think I always tell clients if they're really struggling with it, I'm like, think about when you go to stores. Like Target and Walmart, they emphasize things, if it's on the end cap, if it's in the middle of the aisle, they draw attention with like the sale signs or whatever. Like, it's not just like, oh, everything's equal. We're
mhm,
just like, buy whatever. They are, and obviously, like, I know some companies pay to be highlighted extra or whatever. Like, I know
mhm,
that's part of it, but that's what we have to do too. Like, we have to draw extra attention to the things that matter the most. And so whether that's you're in the middle of a launch, so you're going to move this offer to the homepage, or whether it's like this is your most profitable offer or most popular offer, like those need to be on the homepage or whatever. That's how I help people kind of categorize. And typically the way that I set up homepages, it's very easy for my clients to switch that out.
mm,
So it can be just changing the link, or typically it would be like changing the little title that's like, okay, instead of just web design, it's the website audit, or like for me,
mhm.
and then like, okay, now I'm going to switch that. So it's not like they have to change the whole layout of the homepage. Now they're launching this new offer. It's just like, okay, group program is not open for enrollment, so I don't want to highlight that on the homepage. So instead, I'm going to highlight this other offer.
Amazing. That's clear.
Yeah.
That's a smart strategy because, like, if you need to redesign your page every single time your offer slightly tweaks, you'd
Right.
be like, "Huh, a
No.
nightmare, nightmare." And
Yeah.
then you mentioned so your clients are giving you all the copy necessarily. Now, from an
Mhm.
SEO perspective, if a client it doesn't have, and I'm assuming most of your clients aren't going to have any clue about SEO or copyright or anything
Right.
like that,
Mm-mm.
how do you then take their copy and make sure that's SEO friendly on a website? And for our listeners that don't know anything about SEO, can you simplify one what SEO really is and why it
Mhm.
matters, and then kind of that your structure around that?
Yeah. So, first, SEO stands for search engine optimization. Simply put, we are optimizing the content, the copy on your website to help you show up for a particular keyword. So for me, that's terms related to website design and hiring a website designer and small business websites and like those kinds of things. So the biggest issue that I see, like when I'm doing SEO audits or doing the SEO for my clients, is and it sounds kind of funny when I say it, but they don't actually use the terms that they want to show up for.
Mhm.
And you're like, "Well, but, like, how does that happen?" I don't know. I don't know how people manage to write their entire homepage and they never mention their title. So, like, that's a big issue. Going back to your question about, like, how do I walk help my clients through that? First, we do talk about SEO on those calls so that they know to, like, incorporate some of these terms into the copy, because you don't need to, like, say it 1,000 times. Google will be like, "Lisa, you sound like a spam robot, like, what is happening over here?" But we need to use your keyword terms, your related terms, those kinds of things in your copy. Just sounding natural, talking about your offers, you're probably already doing it. And then my clients really are great because they allow me to kind of tweak their copy. And not that I go in and like rewrite paragraphs, but I typically need to go in and just add their keyword into like the headline for that page, or tweak it here and there and add that. And most of the time they're like, "Thank you." Like, I've never had anyone be like, "How dare you change my copy? Don't touch it." If anything, I've had people who are like, "Well, is like, I don't know if I like that keyword term," or like, so then we can talk about like, "Well, this one has the most search. We can do this other one that's close, but it has like half the search compared to this other term. So, like, what would you like to do?"
Yeah.
It's really, we talk about it beforehand, but then I will tweak it a little bit if need be and add it onto the page, and then that really helps it come together. And one of the other things that I really talk about with my clients is the length of their copy. Not that SEO requires like a minimum of a certain amount of words. It's not like Google's like, "Oh, I'm sorry, there's not 500 words on this page, so we can't rank it." But it's one of those kind of correlation things where the more copy you have on the page, the more likely, because Google wants to give their users a good experience. So if they're Googling a question and they go to a page that has two sentences on it,
Mhm.
I mean, that might work if it's just, "Hey, what is the state capital of Georgia?" Then sure, that page only needs two sentences. But if you and I are Googling, like, how to set up email with
Mhm.
a domain, like, that's a very lengthy instruction. Like, we're gonna need more copy for that.
Mhm.
So it's not necessarily that Google's looking for a minimum word count, but they want to know that Lisa's providing education, it's valuable, it's accurate, it's in depth, and that this user is not going to have to go to Lisa's site, get half the answer, and then go to Jessica's site and get the other half of the answer. Like, they want the users to be able to stay in one spot, get the answers, and be like, "Great, I like got the answer to my problem and I'm done. Mission accomplished."
Mhm. So when I was first learning SEO, and again, this going back like 10 years ago, we were taught you had to have a certain amount of keywords bolded in the header, in the body, underlined, italics. And you're going to absolutely hate when I say this. I was taught to, in the background of our website,
Oh, I know what you're going to say.
put as many keywords as possible and hide the text so no one can actually see it. And that's the whole spamming side of it.
Yes.
Obviously, things have, I'm assuming, have changed and you don't actually recommend that anymore, but what kind of small tips like that can you give us to actually help our SEO?
Yeah, so please, please, please do not do what she just said, where you turn the text white. Google's knows this, they see it. You will get penalized so hard because they're like, "You are doing spammy tactics, not okay. Like, we're not gonna reward that." The bolding, the underline, like, that doesn't really come into play anymore. So, I mean, it doesn't hurt you by any means, but it doesn't help either. So if you want to, sure, but, like, it's not really gonna help. Now
You
adding
cut out there for a minute.
oh, am I
Yes.
back?
Yeah, you're back now. Say the bolding and underline doesn't really come into play anymore.
Okay,
That's where you cut out.
okay. Now the bolding and the underlining doesn't really come into play anymore. It's not gonna hurt you, but it's not really gonna help you. So, I mean, if you want to from, like, a design standpoint, or you just wanna, like, emphasize something, then go for it, but that's not really related to SEO. Now, putting your keywords into your headlines is helpful. It's not an absolute. It's not like you have to, but I typically do for my clients because it does seem to work. And so, first, want to clarify you need a different keyword for each page on your website.
Hmm.
So, for me, I'm not optimizing each of my website pages for website design or website designer. So, like, they're very similar. They're basically just variations. So I have like website designer for small business website designer, or like SEO services for small business. Like, so there's very similar phrasing, but they are different. So that's the first thing you want to do is make sure you have a different keyword for each page. And then let's say that you have chosen this keyword like social media manager, and that's your homepage. If you can include social media manager in your headline, like the very first headline on your page, that's going to help. And so you could say, like, I'm a social media manager for small businesses or for banks and veterinarians or like whatever your niche is. And then like I mentioned earlier, using related keywords is very very helpful. So you for social media manager, you would want to say like naming the platforms. Like I help clients on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram, and we look at your analytics and we create social media posts. Like basically just all of the terms that describe your job and like the tasks that you do, those are related keywords. Like that's it. Because Google wants to see not just the keyword, but that this page actually is about this keyword that you're telling them. So in order to see that, they need to see these other words. Otherwise, it's like you've put social media manager up in the headline, and then the rest of the page is about vanilla cupcakes and chasing your dreams and what, and there's like no other mention of social media. They're like, this is not about social media at all. Like what is
Interesting.
happening here? So that's, you do want to include it in your headlines if you can. Again, don't be obnoxious. It doesn't need to be in every single headline, but including that. And if you can mention it in your copy again, like social media or social media manager, like it'll help, but don't be obnoxious. I always say the worst example of SEO is dentist. I don't know what these SEO agencies that specialize in dentists are doing, but I don't know if I've seen a single dentist website yet that doesn't have some obnoxious paragraph at the bottom of their page that's like, we are an Atlanta dentist for the people in Atlanta. So if you need an Atlanta dentist in Atlanta, we are the dentist for you in Atlanta. Like, it's just absolutely obnoxious. So don't sound like a robot. Like, you want to sound very human, especially with the most recent algorithm updates from Google and all of the new AI tools coming out and people using AI for copy. It's not that Google is banning AI, like they're not, shadowing any sites that use AI copy. It's still in limbo. They're still trying to kind of figure out what they're going to do with AI, but they want to make sure that the sites that they are sending people to are made for humans, made by humans for humans, because again, they want that good user experience.
Mhm.
So you want it to sound real. You want it to sound human. So focus on that. The other thing I would say is make sure that any images on the pages are also optimized. So that means a few things. One, that it's not huge. You need to compress your images. So if you have Photoshop, compress the image, or if you don't, like tinypng.com lets you upload an image and like compress it so it's a small file size.
Hmm.
And then you want to rename the file on your computer. So instead of image 3286 and then uploading that, you want to use the keyword that is on that, like associated with the page it's going on. So social media manager or social media management services, whatever. Just put that in the file name. And then when you upload it, let's say it's a picture of you at your desk and you're smiling, you have your laptop, whatever, you should have I mean,
Like, you're describing me right now.
hey, we all have them, okay? It's no shade, I have them too. You want to have the alt text. So every website platform has an option. It's like in the image settings or in the image module, like depending on whatever site you're using, you should have a place to put the alt text. This is for screen readers. It does play into SEO, but you want to actually describe what's in the photo. So this is not just putting a list of keywords, which is what people used to do. So you would want to say, there's little ways you can usually incorporate your keywords again. So instead of just like woman sitting at desk using her laptop, I would say like social media manager sitting at
Mhm,
desk using her laptop. So, like, just that so I'm still describing. I mean, you could even say, like, female social media manager if you wanted, like, it
mhm.
doesn't matter, but you just wanna describe what the picture is because, again, it's for accessibility, it's for people who have to use screen readers. It does play a little bit into SEO, but it's primarily for accessibility. So but that's how you can optimize your images for each page. So do that for all of your images, and then with your keyword and it's in the copy, it's in the headlines, like, you've now optimized your page.
But yeah, it's like it used to be so complicated. You had to have this many words and this many underlined,
Uh-huh.
and I don't even know if that was actually right. Like this is not the route that I went down with my career whatsoever. So I don't know, but that's what I was taught years ago. Very, very interesting about the whole one keyword per page. That's something new
Yes.
that you taught me. So thank you for that. I do have one more question for you, and
Okay.
I ask everyone this question that comes on for an interview on the More Than Social podcast. If you could give one piece of advice to a fellow entrepreneur, what would that piece of advice be?
I would say diversify your marketing. I
Okay.
feel like a lot of entrepreneurs get really sucked into like, I'm only going to show up on Instagram. And then, they also have an email list or like they might do this other thing, but they really only lean into Instagram. And I feel like, especially with all the Instagram changes lately,
Mhm.
not to harp on Instagram, but I mean, this happened when Facebook groups were a huge thing and everyone was in like 30,000 Facebook groups and always responding to like, I need this, I need a designer, I need a social media manager. Cause I mean, I remember when Facebook groups then like all of a sudden just like died
Mhm.
and, like,
Mhm.
just they stopped working, and I realized in that moment I had gotten so many clients from Facebook groups, and I'd relied pretty heavily like, I was still on Instagram, I had a podcast at that point, so, like, I was in other places, but I realized, "Oh, like, I don't have these Facebook groups anymore, and this is kind of scary." Like, I'm supposed
Mhm.
to, like, where am I gonna get my clients? And so I think with all the different algorithms going on and just I feel like there's kind of a shift happening with user behavior and where people are finding people and how much longer it takes to land a client because it I'm sure you've heard about the like they need 7 interactions with a
Mhm.
brand before you like buy from them. I feel like it's probably double that number now.
Yeah, it's like 10 minimum.
Yeah, and I mean, I should really look into see if, like, has that number actually changed? Have they researched that yet? And I don't mean diversify your marketing as in I'm not preaching, like, be everywhere on every platform, but I've been really active on Threads recently, and I've been seeing a lot of people talking about, like, "Oh, I'm leaning more into Pinterest because I can get more site traffic. It's a little more evergreen, like, I don't have to show up on stories and
Mhm.
and post, a carousel and a reel every day and that kind of thing. Same with SEO. Like, of course, I'm biased. I think everyone should also lean into SEO, but I just think about how you can diversify your marketing without burning yourself out and how you can show up and get your brand in front of more people.
Mhm. No, I love that, and I 100% agree. It's like people put so much time and attention, especially even onto social media right now, because it's still the big thing. But it's like, what if social media disappears tomorrow? Or what if Instagram goes down, like we saw a few months ago and last
Yeah.
year? It's like it happens. So I 100% agree. Don't have everything in one basket. Spread yourself not thin, but be other places. So
Mhm.
I agree with that. So thank you so much for sharing. And honestly, you've given me so much to think about. Mentioned in the beginning that I thought I had a kind of a handle on SEO from my past experience, but definitely not. So I need to work on that. And I'm sure our listeners have learned a lot from you. Where can they find you? And I know we also talked about you had a guide that could help us dive
Yeah.
even deeper into this.
Yeah, so I'm pretty easy to find. jesscreatives.com, Jess creatives plural.com, and I'm at Jess Creatives pretty much everywhere, Facebook, Threads, Instagram, Pinterest, like I'm everywhere. And then I have a free backlink guide. So I failed to mention backlinks earlier. Backlinks, just real quick, are like me linking to Lisa. Lisa now has a backlink from me. I'm linking back to her. And this, it's losing some of its SEO like juice, so to speak. Like Google has just announced literally like this week that they're not paying as much attention. But I also feel like it's still another kind of like sub marketing channel,
Mhm.
because if I mention you on my blogs, people who come to my blog are still going to like click over to you and find you. So it's just another shout out, but it also gives SEO juice. So like if Lisa links to me on her website in this podcast, then I have another backlink to my website. So I have a quick backlink guide to kind of give you ideas on how to go about that, the benefits, all that kind of stuff. So jesscreatives.com/backlink, and you can get that free guide and start to kind of work on your SEO.
Amazing. I'll make sure to post that in the show notes as well as all of your platforms that you're on so people can connect with you. But guys, if you have any questions with SEO or website design, like I really like the conversation we were having about the 3 different offers on the homepage. Like that's really creative as well. Any questions along that line, reach out to Jess. Jess, thank you so, so much. You've given me lots to think about, and I'm sure all of our listeners lots of things to think about. I greatly appreciate it. And I truly believe in SEO. I think it's a solid foundation that you need to have in the online world. So
Yes.
thank you for everything that you do, and thank you for being here.
Yes, thanks so much for having me.
Of course, talk to you soon.